Joining us now, Representative Michael Guest. He's a congressman who represents Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District, and he's in a primary runoff election coming up against his challenger, Michael Cassidy. That will be on June the 28th, just right around the corner. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Gerard. Thank you for having us on today.
Yes, sir, you bet. So we've got, we just came off of the primary here a couple of weeks ago. We got the runoff coming up, and it seems like the campaigns and the rhetoric has really been intensifying on both sides, and that's kind of to be expected. It was a very close race. Don't remember the exact numbers at the end. Do you remember those, Congressman?
Basically 48% for both myself and Mr. Cassidy, and Mr. Thomas Griffin, I think, ended up approximately 4% of the vote.
Okay. So let's dig right into it. So one of the things that we've heard from the Cassidy camp is that you voted for the resolution in the House of Representatives that authorized and established the January 6th Select Committee, which is presently conducting hearings. I think they've had, if I'm not mistaken, 2, and a third is scheduled today. Is that accurate? Did you vote for that resolution?
It is not, Gerard. And look, throughout this entire campaign, my opponent has not run the campaign based on who he is and what he's going to do, but instead he has based his campaign on lies, disinformation, and attacks on myself and my family. You know, he tries to convince people that I voted for this current January 6th Select Committee that Nancy Pelosi has put Benny Thompson in charge of, and that can be the furthest from the truth. I voted against that. I voted against that on June the 30th of 2021. That was House Resolution 530. I did not support that. There were only 2 Republicans who supported that, who were Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. I voted, along with every other Republican in the House, against that. What he's trying to confuse people with is that there was a law enforcement commission that was proposed that had bipartisan support. That commission would have given Republicans and Democrats 5 law enforcement appointees to serve on that commission. They would have had limited subpoena power. They would have had a very limited time period of roughly 6 months to complete their inquiry and return a report for Congress. And that is what I voted to support. Once that failed, I knew that what we were going to get was going to be what we see now, which is nothing more than just an attack on President Trump, an attack on conservatives. It is nothing more than a political witch hunt. I did not vote for that. I do not support that. And I hope that if the people of Mississippi will allow me to continue to represent them, that one of the first votes we take in Congress when Republicans retake the House of Representatives will be a vote to disband the committee that we currently have right now.
Interesting. Okay, so another issue that's come up quite a bit is your support for federal dollars going to Planned Parenthood, and I think specifically what the allegation is that you supported $1.5 billion of federal money going to the abortion provider Planned Parenthood. And you and I both know that the funding model for Planned Parenthood, I've explained it on the air numerous times. It's convoluted, it's complex. Please respond to that.
Yeah, and again, just more disinformation, more lies being spread by my opponent. You know, he claims that because I voted for a bill that would fund the entire government, that would fund the military, Social Security, federal law enforcement, fund our infrastructure, that because I voted for that bill, that somehow I support Planned Parenthood. There is not a line item in the federal budget to support Planned Parenthood. And what my opponent refuses to tell people is the pro-life position that I've taken and where I stand on pro-life. You know, there are 2 major pro-life groups in Washington, D.C., the National Right to Life and Susan B. Anthony. Because of my 100% pro-life voting record, Gerard, with both of those groups, they have both endorsed me as the pro-life candidate in this race. My opponent refuses to say that I was the only person who stood on the steps of the United States Supreme Court and addressed the pro-life rally as we were fighting to overturn Roe v. Wade. I led the amicus brief for members of Congress setting forth both factually and legally why Roe should be overturned. And if people don't believe that, I encourage people to go to Planned Parenthood's website. Planned Parenthood has a website that ranks every member of Congress, assigns them a grade of a number of 0 to 100 based on their support of the Planned Parenthood agenda. I'll tell you that I'm proud to say that I have a 0 ranking with Planned Parenthood, both this Congress and last Congress. And so for my opponent to try to mislead the people of Mississippi, to try to convince them that I'm somebody that I'm not, to try to convince them that I support abortion and I support Planned Parenthood, nothing could be furthest from the truth, Gerard. And he has based his entire campaign on lies, on disinformation, not talking about himself, but instead attacking me, my family, and the positions that I've taken in Congress. And he has misled many people about who I am and what I stand for.
What about the bill, Congressman, that would provide additional security for Supreme Court justices?
You know, I think based on what we've seen, you know, I support that. I support providing additional security to the justices themselves on short term to their immediate family. I don't support giving them the type of security that we give our commander in chief. I don't support Secret Service protection or that type of security for extended members of their family for long periods of time. But I do think that we live in a time in which our nation is very divided. It's very polarized. As we see the court is about to overturn Roe v. Wade, assuming that the draft position, which was leaked, if the justices hold true to that, which I hope and pray that we will, there's going to be threats made to our justices. And the justices must be able to reach legal opinions in a vacuum. They can't be worried about the impact that that's going to have on their safety or the safety of their family. So I do believe it is important that we provide security to those justices, to their immediate family. If there's instances where we're seeing major opinions come out, we may need to do that on a much larger scale. But it's important that they be an independent branch of government. We can't allow public opinion to influence what our justices are doing. And look, I'm proud to say that we finally have a conservative Supreme Court. We know that Donald Trump was able to appoint justices that have switched our current court makeup from a liberal court to a conservative court. Our court is there, and I think we're going to see our court is going to continue to return conservative opinions and overturn much of what this administration is doing. And we must make sure that those justices know that we are going to be protecting them and their family as they make these difficult decisions.
Congressman, there's a bill, a bipartisan bill that is passed in the Senate. It is some degree of gun control legislation, includes funding for mental health, security in schools, and to states to implement red flag laws. I think that's headed over to the House. What is your stance on that?
You know, as far as red flag laws, that's been something that I have repeatedly voted against. I do not like red flag laws. I do not believe that if you look at our current justice system, the burden of proof on red flag laws is shifted to the gun owner, and that is not something that I have or will support. When you talk about additional funding for mental health, when you talk about additional funding for schools so that we can harden schools by making sure that they have proper security cameras, that they have the ability to remotely lock schools down, that we're making sure that we are funding school security officers. Those are things which I do support. But if it includes red flag laws, that would be, to me, something that I would have a great difficulty, if not impossible for me to support. I will look at the legislation. We will read it carefully. But anything that infringes upon people's Second Amendment rights, I have taken a firm stance on that. I'm proud to say that in this race that we've received the endorsement of the NRA, and we've received that endorsement because of the strong stance that we've taken on protecting our Second Amendment rights. And I'm going to continue to stand with the Second Amendment. I'm going to continue to stand with lawful gun owners to make sure that their rights are not infringed upon by the federal government.
Gotcha. Well, we're out of time, Congressman, and certainly appreciate you coming on the show today. Is there anything you'd like to say? Got about 30 seconds left.
just I want to make sure that we're going to continue to remind the people of Mississippi on who we are, that I grew up here, that I went to Brandon High School, attended State, Ole Miss, and then for 25 years, I served as a prosecutor in the Rankin-Madison office, and that we are the true candidate who represents the people of Mississippi. We share the morals and values of the people of this state, and I just ask everyone to please go out and vote on June 28th.
June 28th, that is when the runoff elections will be held. That's Congressman Michael Guest has been our